Imagine you're hunting 40,000 years ago. One wrong step sends you crashing down a rocky slope. You hear a crack. Your leg is broken. There are no hospitals, no surgeons, no painkillers, no antibiotics, no ambulance is coming. Yet somehow, thousands of ancient humans survived injuries like this. Even more surprising, archaeologists have found skeletons proving that many of them didn't just survive, they healed. So how was that possible? What did our ancestors know that allowed them to stay alive in one of the most dangerous periods in human history? The answer isn't what most people expect. For a long time, people imagined prehistoric life as brutally short, where every serious injury meant certain death. It sounds logical. A broken leg should have ended a hunter's life. A deep cut should have become infected. A fractured skull should have been fatal. But the bones buried beneath caves and ancient campsites tell a very different story. Across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, archaeologists have uncovered prehistoric skeletons with fully healed fractures, repaired joints, and even signs of survival after severe head injuries. These weren't lucky accidents. They happened again and again over thousands of years. Take a closer look at one of these skeletons. An arm once snapped in two had grown back together. A leg that should have left its owner unable to walk had completely healed. Some people lived for years after injuries that would have kept them from hunting or gathering food. That creates a fascinating mystery. Healing a broken bone isn't something you can rush. It takes weeks, sometimes months. During that time, an injured person couldn't easily chase animals, climb cliffs, or escape predators. So how did they survive long enough for nature to repair their bodies? The answer begins with something far more powerful than medicine. It begins with other people. Ancient humans didn't survive because they were stronger than every predator around them. They survived because they rarely faced danger alone. Families shared food. Tribes protected the injured. Children learned by watching elders. Every member depended on everyone else. If a hunter broke his leg, someone else had to carry food back to camp. Someone had to gather water. Someone had to protect the group while the injured person slowly recovered. Every healed skeleton is silent evidence that compassion existed long before civilization. Survival wasn't just about strength. It was about cooperation. But kindness alone couldn't heal a shattered bone. The body still needed time and stability. Modern doctors use casts to keep broken bones from moving while they repair themselves. Ancient humans had no plaster, but they understood something surprisingly similar. Although wood and leather rarely survive for archaeologists to find, many researchers believe prehistoric people likely used straight branches, strips of bark, animal hide, and strong plant fibers to hold injured limbs still. It's a simple idea, but an incredibly powerful one. Even without understanding biology, generations of observation would have taught them that a bone left undisturbed had a much better chance of healing than one forced to move every day. This reveals something remarkable about our ancestors. They didn't need laboratories to discover what worked. Every season became an experiment. Every injury became a lesson passed from one generation to the next. Knowledge wasn't written in books. It was carried in memory, shared around campfires, and tested by survival itself. Over thousands of years, these experiences slowly became one of humanity's first forms of medicine. But broken bones were only part of the challenge. A much smaller injury often posed a far greater danger. Sometimes, a tiny cut no wider than a finger could become far more deadly than a fractured leg. Invisible enemies were waiting inside every wound, and ancient humans had no idea bacteria even existed. Yet somehow, many still found ways to fight infections using nothing more than the natural world around them. The greatest threat to ancient humans wasn't always the injury itself. It was what came after. Imagine cutting your hand while shaping a stone tool. At first, it seems minor, but days later, the wound becomes swollen, hot, and painful. Today we know that's often the immune system responding to infection. Ancient humans didn't know about bacteria, but they understood something equally important. Some wounds healed, and some wounds killed. That realization may have changed human history. Over thousands of years, people began noticing patterns. Certain plants seemed to reduce pain. Certain leaves helped stop bleeding. Certain resins protected damaged skin. This wasn't magic. It was observation repeated across countless generations. One of the most famous examples is willow. Its bark contains compounds related to the active ingredient that later inspired aspirin. Ancient people obviously didn't know the chemistry, but they could notice that chewing or preparing willow sometimes eased pain. Another plant, yarrow, has long been associated with reducing bleeding and helping wounds close. Similar traditions appear in many cultures separated by vast distances. Think about what that means. Long before pharmacies existed, forests, grasslands, and riverbanks were already functioning as humanity's first medicine cabinet. And then there's honey. Modern medical researchers have confirmed that honey has remarkable antibacterial properties. It contains enzymes that can produce small amounts of hydrogen peroxide, and its low water content makes it difficult for many microbes to grow. Hospitals still use medical-grade honey for certain wounds today. Did prehistoric humans use honey the same way? We can't prove every detail, but wild honey was available, highly valued, and extremely noticeable in the environment. Many researchers consider it entirely plausible that people discovered its usefulness through experience. Picture an injured hunter returning to camp with a deep cut along his arm. Someone cleans the wound. Someone applies a sticky layer of honey or plant material. Someone wraps it with soft moss, leaves, or animal hide. None of this required knowledge of microbes. It only required one thing, remembering what seemed to work. That memory became a survival technology. But ancient wound care wasn't always gentle. Sometimes the treatment itself could be terrifying. Imagine blood pouring from a serious injury. In a world without modern surgery, stopping the bleeding quickly could mean the difference between life and death. Throughout human history, people discovered that heat could help seal damaged blood vessels. This process, called cauterization, was incredibly painful and risky. Yet in desperate situations, it could save a life. Fire served another purpose as well. Heating simple tools could reduce contamination, even though ancient humans had no concept of sterilization. Once again, they didn't need microscopes to notice patterns. They only needed to see that some practices produced better outcomes than others. What's fascinating is that these methods weren't random. They reflect a deeper feature of human evolution, our ability to learn collectively. A wolf learns from its own experiences. Humans learn from the experiences of an entire group. If one person discovered a useful plant, that knowledge could spread through families, tribes, and eventually generations. In a sense, ancient medicine was built from millions of observations accumulated over tens of thousands of years. But even with plants, honey, bandages, and fire, there was one injury that seems almost impossible to explain. Archaeologists have found prehistoric skulls with perfectly deliberate holes cut into them. Not cracks from accidents. Not damage from animals. Carefully made openings created by human hands. And the most shocking part is this: many of those people survived. How could someone live through what appears to be primitive brain surgery thousands of years before modern hospitals existed? The answer is one of the most mysterious discoveries in all of archaeology. Imagine walking into an archaeological excavation and seeing a human skull that's thousands of years old. At first, it looks ordinary, but then you notice something impossible: a perfectly shaped circular hole cut into the bone. It wasn't made by an animal. It wasn't caused by weather. It was made deliberately by another human. This ancient procedure is known as trepanation, and it has been discovered at prehistoric sites across different parts of the world. Even more astonishing, many of these skulls show clear signs of new bone growing around the edges of the opening. That means the patient didn't die during the procedure. They lived long enough for their skull to begin healing. Why would anyone perform something so dangerous? That's where the mystery begins. Scientists agree that the surgery happened and that some patients survived, but the exact reason remains uncertain. Some researchers believe it may have been used to relieve pressure after a serious head injury. Others think it could have been an attempt to treat severe headaches, seizures, or neurological symptoms. Another possibility is that it held spiritual or ritual significance within certain communities. The truth is, we simply don't know. Good science accepts uncertainty when the evidence is incomplete. But regardless of the reason, one fact is undeniable. Ancient humans were willing to attempt remarkably complex treatments because doing nothing may have been even more dangerous. As incredible as trepanation is, it wasn't the most important reason our ancestors survived. The greatest medical breakthrough happened long before anyone picked up a sharp stone. It happened the moment humans began caring for one another. Archaeologists have discovered individuals who lived for years despite devastating disabilities. Some had severe arthritis that would have made hunting nearly impossible. Others survived after losing limbs or suffering injuries that left them unable to move normally. These people didn't stay alive because they were the strongest members of the tribe. They survived because someone shared food with them. Someone protected them, Someone waited while they healed. Their bones preserve one of the oldest stories ever told, not a story of violence, but of compassion. This may be one of humanity's greatest evolutionary advantages. Lions rely on strength. Wolves rely on the pack. Humans relied on something even more powerful, knowledge combined with cooperation. Every healed fracture became a lesson. Every successful treatment became shared wisdom. Every survivor increased the chances that the next injured person would live. Over thousands of generations, this growing library of experience slowly became the foundation of medicine itself. In many ways, the human body was also performing its own quiet miracle. Bones constantly rebuilt themselves. Blood formed clots to stop bleeding. Skin closed over wounds. The immune system fought invading microbes, even though ancient people had no idea it existed. They didn't understand cells, bacteria, or DNA. Yet they learned to work with the body's natural ability to heal instead of against it. Their role wasn't to replace biology. It was to give biology enough time to succeed. When we think about modern surgery, it's easy to focus on scalpels, hospitals, and advanced technology. But this incredible journey began much earlier, with sharpened observation, shared experience, and the simple decision to care for another person. Every hospital on Earth exists because countless generations refused to stop learning from pain. Every medical discovery rests on thousands of years of human curiosity, resilience, and cooperation. So, how did ancient humans survive without surgery? They survived because nature gave them remarkable bodies, experience taught them practical solutions, and their communities refused to abandon the injured. They didn't have operating rooms, but they had something just as essential, the ability to learn together. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson hidden inside these ancient bones. Humanity's first medicine wasn't found in a bottle or carved from stone. It lived in trust, compassion, and the determination to help one another survive. Our ancestors left behind more than bones and tools. They left behind lessons we're still learning today. If you're curious about the hidden science of ancient humans, you're in the right place. I'll see you in the next video.